Obviously, for some people, it's crazy that I've left a job in banking in Hong Kong, a very comfortable city, to go back to Ghana without a plan. I don't really have a plan. I'm going to try something. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because I'm okay with failure as well. Like, I'm like, failure, bitch. Let's go. I'm okay with you. And I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to go home. I'm going home. I'm going to my home. You know, I'm going home to my home, the one place in the world I can actually call my home. I am going home. And for me, that's exciting.
Hello, lovely people. This is your girl, Vidette. Welcome to the very first introduction episode of Cashing Up with Vidette, a podcast sponsored by Sorted Chale. I'm so excited to be able to actually release this podcast, especially because of the journey that I've gone through building this business. And I think for me, it's just been such an interesting journey to build a business like Sorted Chale. But more so, it's been interesting to see how I've grown, how I've changed, how I've just become a different person in the process of building the business. So with Cashing Up with Vidette, what I want to do is I want to meet people and I want to have conversations with them, but not just about building businesses or being entrepreneurs or, being people who are making impactful changes, but just about life, love, loss, everything that allows people to be who they are. So Cashing Up with Vidette is going to just be a fantastic journey. But I can't start talking about people's journeys without talking about my journey. And a lot of people, talk to me and speak about Sorted Chale or have experienced the business, have traveled Africa with us, but they don't actually know the face behind the business. And sometimes that's a good thing because I don't want to create a business that is essentially created around me and who I am. I think a business should be created regardless of who the person is behind the business. But I do think that still adds some flavor and personality to the business. So I am happy to put myself forward in a way that actually benefits people, allows people to truly see who I am, and allows people to feel motivated to also carry on if they are thinking about going down this journey. So let's take it from the jump. How did this come about? How I started? I'll tell you a bit about my background before I became this travel guru in Africa. Yes, that's what I am. But before that, I did have a life. So let's get into that. I moved to Ghana in December 2020, and literally the height of COVID. But before moving to Ghana, I actually was a banker. And that's something that a lot of people don't know. I know that I've just immersed myself in the travel space, but your girl was in the bank. And I worked in banking straight after university, studied law in university. Law was great, but I always knew that I probably would not be a lawyer. Personally, I've always been the type of person who wants to explore different things. I will never die on a hill for one particular cause. I will die on the hill for my joy and my happiness and my fun. So long as I'm having fun, I know it's going to be an awesome experience. And that's my ethos and my principle. I need to have fun through my journey. So I studied law and ended up in the banking world. That had always been a big dream for me in many ways. I remember living in Woolwich and looking out on Canary Wharf. I could see Canary Wharf clearly. I was like, I want to work in one of those buildings. Boy, oh boy, that was a journey. So ended up in the banking world, worked there for some time, loved it, lived in London doing that, and then moved to Hong Kong, right? But before even the banking world, I definitely had an immense love for travel, which is why I forced my way into living in Hong Kong, right? That was something that I always knew when I started work. I knew that I was going to live a life of being international. I needed to be in the sky. I needed to be where the fun was. I needed to be where the diversity and people of different backgrounds were. So when I even went into the banking world, I knew it was very clear for me that I wanted to be abroad. I was going to be outside. That was one thing about me. I was going to be outside. So ended up in Hong Kong, stayed in Hong Kong for 2 years as an expat. Best experience. I always say, if you're a young person in your 20s building a career, do not be the person who stays in one country as much as you can, right? Not everybody has the same opportunity, the same privilege to experience this. But if you do, just do not stay in one country. For many reasons, right? There are the tax implications. There are the experience implications. There are the ability to navigate a new environment. That ability you get from living abroad. And for me, I highly recommend it for anyone. And I definitely got that in my experience of living in Hong Kong. I was a Black woman working in banking in a country or city-state, if you may, that literally did not have any Black people. Well, literally all the Black people knew each other. Like it was one campus and there was 20 of us and we all knew who we were, right? If a new person joined, we knew that this person was new in the game. And I think that that was very interesting because it taught me a lot about how to kind of interact with people who are not from the same environment as you, which has been very important in my journey in Sorted Chale. But even before then, I've always been a big travel girl. Before moving to Hong Kong, before immersing myself in that culture for the time I stayed there for, I was always traveling. I backpacked through Southeast Asia by myself. I did backpacking in Europe. I was always the one to spend my money on travel. I remember finishing university and I saved up so much money. I threw myself a big barbecue and the next day I was in New York. New York was my absolute favorite country and I knew I had to experience New York. So travel has been a big part of my life even before going to Hong Kong. So I lived in Hong Kong for 2 years. But in those 2 years, in as much as I loved my job, guys, like I am not one of those people who resigned from my job because I hated my job. See, that's the mistake number one. I actually liked my job. I loved the people I worked with. My bosses were lovely to me. I had a great trajectory. But honestly, for me, I just wanted something a bit more challenging. This is how you know I don't like peace, because I really had peace and decided to go and get challenged. So I wanted something challenging. And even before COVID hit, I decided I would try starting a business, and travel was the industry that just came so naturally to me. I loved it. I wanted to meet more people. And at the time, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't really thinking about the business part. I was just thinking about the fact that this was my passion and I was going to go for it, right? So I made a plan to quit my job, but then COVID hit. I had to make a big pause. I had to stop. And in that stopping, it really gave me time to really reflect about my decision. People often want to resign. Everyone wants to quit and go and do something. But when you have a pause, it makes you reflect. And the longer you reflect, you really know if this is something that you're really willing to die for. So for me, in that 6 months when COVID hit, I was reflecting about whether quitting my job to start a travel company in Africa was a good decision. So in December 2020, still in the midst of COVID, I resigned from my job. And I actually took the leap of faith to move to Ghana, West Africa. And guys, that decision has been so interesting. Sometimes I think, oh my God, why did you do this? And sometimes I think this is the best decision I've ever made. But for the most part, it's been life-changing. That's one thing. Why do you keep looking at, am I doing something wrong? Okay, cool. All right, cool. Great. For the most part, it's been life-changing moving to Ghana and starting this phenomenal business that has not impacted just my life, but the life of my team and everyone around me. So Ghana has just been really incredible. When we moved to Ghana, or when I moved to Ghana to start the business, quite frankly, I could never have planned what it would look like. We started the business, honestly, there was no money being made. We were just out here running around. I was personally a tour guide. I was taking people to places I have never been to, but I had to be very enthusiastic. Sometimes enthusiasm is good enough, okay? So I was taking people to these places I'd never been to before, but I was very much committed to the cause. And I remember in our first half of the business, I really did not feel positive about my decision, the future I was looking to build with the business. But then at last, we really made it into this space where we found out that there were so many people who needed our services, right? And once, the thing about business that is so interesting is you just need that one customer. That one customer opens the door to the next customer, and the next customer opens the door to the next customer. And that's how it all started for Sorted Chale. Subsequently, we've had people like Chance the rapper come on our trip and tweet about us. Chance was like, oh my God, I had a great time with Sorted Chale. He did actually say that. Not like that, but you know, he said that. We've had people like Charlemagne the God, Bozoma St. John, amazing podcasts like To My Sisters. We've served so many Ivy League universities across the USA because I was willing to take the leap of faith, take a risk, to resign and actually follow a calling, definitely in the business entrepreneurial world. But beyond that, I'm also a human being. I'm also a person. Beyond building a business, I also have feelings. I've gone through a lot. Moving to Ghana has not been easy, guys. This is the catching up side of the cashing up. So cashing up is essentially me talking to people about how they, process building and how they make money, X, Y, and Z, but there's also the catching up side, which is just about life and how that shapes how you also kind of navigate the space of business or, finding your calling. But for me, it's also been challenging, right? I've moved to a country as a single young woman, a country I haven't lived in as an adult. I have to make new friends. I have to move. I have to explore the cultural aspects of that particular space. And that hasn't been easy. I've had friendship breakup through the process of focusing on the business and choosing the business first. And that's a conversation that most people aren't ready to have. I've had to leave all my friends in London to move to Ghana and set up businesses. And a lot of friendships have actually been lost in the process, right? I've also had to navigate, really focusing on the business and losing certain parts of life that I may have potentially had flourishing. Maybe the love life side, There's just so many aspects of going through the journey of either building or creating that I really want to explore in the process of creating this podcast. So for me, Cashing Up with Vidette is really a way for us to bring our chalets and our community together to have discussions that go beyond travel, right? It's really traveling through the minds of people to really understand how people navigate their personal lives and their calling. So as we go through this journey together, as we have conversations with people like Courtney and Renee from To My Sisters, Small God, Kukwa Ashan, Abinabuama, I hope you will be inspired. I hope you will come on this journey with us. You will travel through the minds of these creatives, business people, overall amazing people, and you will find something that is equally impactful and useful to you. Put this podcast on whilst you're on the flight, catching feelings, catching flights, or just catching feelings. No, actually, just catching flights if you want. But whatever it is, just put this podcast on as you travel through life, because I cannot wait to do this with you. Thank you.